episode one of what I believe would be a nice long series of whiskey tasting loveliness. I guess we're doing it a little bit for our own purposes rather than everybody else's. So, first episode, I think it is worthwhile to do this a little bit differently. We will not necessarily taste the whiskey per se, but we might go over how to taste whiskey. That's probably the obvious start. What we're going to do is give a couple of checkpoints. The checkpoints will be around the optimum way of tasting whiskey. Now, there is no right or wrong way, and we by no means are we purists. But over the years of tasting whiskies, I have found a preferred way of doing it for myself, and it works really well. I mean, the reason we want to take some effort in this is because we've got a distillery, hundreds of years of experience of making whiskey, exactly the right kind of alcohol producing, choosing the right barrels, putting them in the kind of warehouses that they want, snuffing them every couple of years. All this knowledge, all this effort goes into whiskey. So the last thing we want to do is chuck it down and go, oh yeah, that's okay. So I do think that it's a good idea to spend a little bit of time, make a bit of effort to make sure we understand what it is that we're drinking. I don't have a problem going to a pub and trying a new whiskey, just so you know. But when it comes to especially something new, something special, I'd like to do just a little bit of effort. So a lot of this, if any of you have been to distilleries, a lot of this you've heard before. So a couple of checkpoints, in my opinion, are firstly, room temperature. Ideally, you're in a kind of room temperature type environment. You would like your whiskey to be around about room temperature. I like to have some shortbread with me because I love the taste of whiskey and shortbread, the sweetness of the shortbread and the whiskey together. Have a bit of water with you to put in there. That's an episode in itself. We'll get into that a bit later, but having a bit of water to add is always a good idea. So I also like to have a decent glass. This is a Glencairn or nosing type glass, very much like the ones that you'll see at the distilleries nowadays. However, I have chosen to use this glass, which is a Yamazaki glass from the Yamazaki distillery, as an ode to our first Islay tour. So we had two guests on our first Islay tour, and it was Bruno and Simon. Most lovely two guys, and Bruno then went to Japan about a year later, and lo and behold, this was in the post. Thank you, Bruno. This will now be our official Slange Scotland whiskey tasting glass. There you go. So make the effort, by the way, to taste some of the Japanese whiskies. They are unbelievably good. We'll have one or two on these tastings too. So let us start. I have already been bad and poured one. What I like to do then is to hold it a little bit, especially if the glass is cold or if the whiskey is cold, if the room is cold, to get it a little the temperature up just a wee bit. And the whole fancy swirling really only serves one purpose, and that is to see kind of like roughly what's the oil kind of content like in the glass, like you would do with wine, and you would look at the legs and make your judgment according to that. So this is an Auchentoshan American oak, and the Auchentoshans don't famously have the most amount of thick oil around the edges. They are famous for their fine triple distilled spirits. The next thing to do, obviously, is to give it a good whiff. Fruity as hell, typical bourbon. I wouldn't say younger spirit, but first full bourbon, oak barrel, and then obviously Auchentoshan makes these high alcohol content fine spirits, which then go into the barrels, so they have that more kind of fruity zestiness to them usually. The next thing to do, obviously, is to sip some. I like to take just enough to cover my tongue and the front of my mouth. Now, the distillers will tell you, put some in your mouth, hold it there, and I've heard this before, hold it there for as old as the whiskey is, as many seconds as the whiskey is old in years, or aged in years in the barrels. I don't really see that necessarily. Hold it in there. The point is to get your tongue and your mouth used to the alcohol and numb it a bit for the next one. So hold it in there until that's done, and then swallow it by letting it run all through the back of your mouth, over your tongue. Make sure it gets everywhere. Some whiskeys stay in the front, some whiskeys stay a little bit in the back, so you want to get it everywhere to get the full flavor. The reason I don't really care about the counting it out, it seems a little bit silly to sit there and count out the years. It's kind of like teaching kids to brush their teeth for 2 minutes, when the whole point is to brush their teeth properly and not brush their teeth for 2 minutes. They could be brushing one tooth for 2 minutes for all we know. The idea is more to make sure that they brush their teeth properly, and that might just take 2 minutes. To me, it's the same idea. So once you've tasted it, give it a minute and take another sip. And this is the point at which you should probably clear your taste buds just a little bit. Now, with a dropper, carefully put in 3 to 4 drops onto the whiskey water. The best water to use, in my opinion, again, is Scottish water, or any water from any region that is soft water, clean soft water, natural water. If you live in a region with hard water, a lot of calcium in it and stuff like that, it's probably not ideal, and you're probably best buying some water in from some soft region, because it does make quite a difference. So if you don't have a wee dropper, you can pull this trick. You can pour a little bit in a glass, pour it over to the other glass, and you'll see some residue in the bottom. That's usually the right amount to then drop into your whiskey. And then give it a quick swirl and try the whiskey again. If you've not overdone it, you'll probably taste the whiskey changes quite a bit. It becomes a lot softer, a lot smoother, and in many cases a couple of layers of tastes are hidden or come out after that. So it does change it a bit. Now that doesn't mean that's how you drink your whiskey. That's how you taste your whiskey. If you prefer it without the water, you drink it without the water. If you drink it with the water, you drink it with the water. There is no problem. That is up to you. We'll get into why you don't chuck ice and all that sort of nonsense in it, because although I'm happy to tell people to drink the whiskey the way they want to, when it comes to ice, it changes the game considerably. So another good thing to do is to eat your shortcakes, or in other cases oatcakes. Very nice to have with it before you then maybe go on to the next one. Clear your glass, make sure you've got a clean glass, drink a little bit of water, and go towards the next one. So that is Whiskey Tasting 101 from our perspective. If you have any suggestions or ideas, please put them in below. The next video I think I will quickly make around the subject of water and ice and cooling the whiskey and all that, so watch out for that. Until next time, thank you very much.